What do you do when one political party in this country is so thoroughly corrupt and power hungry that they will undermine the country, undermine our grand institutions to gain power? That's what was on display in these hearings on Capitol Hill today. I know people are mocking them. I know people are saying it was a clown show. But it was a clown show because of Mr. Strzok and because of the Democrats. Many of the Republicans were actually trying to get information. They were heckled. They were interrupted. They were disrespected. Every time the Republicans began to really focus in, Sheila Jackson-Lee or one of the other clowns on the committee, point of order, Mr. Chairman, point of order. Regular order, Mr. Chairman, regular order, having nothing to do with anything. And not only were they obstructing this hearing, they were praising Mr. Strzok. One member of Congress, as you will hear later, even thought he should receive the Purple Heart. Many of you listening out there have received a Purple Heart. Do you think Mr. Strzok deserves a Purple Heart? So this is a big problem in this country. I remember the day when there were actually Democrat leaders, members of Congress, who were patriotic. I really do. Who would not have put up with a senior FBI agent like this. And they would have been concerned about it. They would have been concerned about how senior officials of the FBI have poisoned the institution, undermining the other 20,000 or so employees at the FBI who are hardworking patriots, many of whom are heroes. They'd be appalled by this. I remember the day when the media, as bad as the media are, when the media would have been repulsed by this. Mr. Strzok is prominent because of what Mr. Strzok wrote. His texts. Now, he makes a fine point during the hearings today, and they're still going on, in which he says that the Inspector General didn't actually say that he did anything that was biased in terms of the investigation, but that the fact is that he had these personal views and so forth and so on, suggested he was biased, at least of mine, but it doesn't mean he actually did anything biased in the course of the investigations. Well, of course that's false. He's an FBI agent, a senior FBI agent in charge of one investigation and influential in another investigation, Clinton and Trump. But I want to draw your attention to the ethics handbook of the Department of Justice. My wife Julie drew my attention to it, and she's right. General Principles of Ethical Conduct, Section 14, Item 14. Listen. Employees shall endeavor to avoid any actions creating the appearance that they are violating the law or ethical standards set forth in this part. Whether particular circumstances create an appearance that the law or these standards have been violated shall be determined from the perspective of a reasonable person with knowledge of the relevant facts. The Inspector General concluded that Mr. Strzok created the appearance of a conflict. That's the test. That's good enough. And there's a reason for that. Because Mr. Strzok brought disfavor not just about himself, but the institution of the FBI. Now, I love the institution of the FBI. When I worked over at the Department of Justice, I had nothing but respect for the institution of the FBI. And that goes today, too. It is these people at the top of the FBI who clawed their way to the top, to these powerful positions, who think there's some kind of God with life and death control over campaigns, life and death control over individuals and organizations. We saw it at the IRS. The abuses at the IRS, they weren't targeting left-wing groups. They didn't target Planned Parenthood or the ACLU or CARE or any of them. They targeted Tea Party groups exclusively. Mr. Strzok and the other senior officials at the FBI targeted the Trump campaign and protected the Hillary campaign. This is not in dispute, despite what the Democrats did at the hearing today. Period. And we got to see Mr. Strzok, who's a weasel. He is a complete weasel.